Hi, Year 6. I'm going to read for you now pages 21 to 27 of Salt to the Sea. So starting from page 21 with Joanna. The wandering boy found a deserted barn away off the road. We decided to settle there for the night. We had been walking for days, and both strength and morale waned. The bombs had set nerves on edge. I moved from body to body, treating blisters, wounds, frostbite. But I had no treatment for what plagued people the most: fear. Germany had invaded Russia in 1941. For the past 4 years, the two countries had committed unspeakable atrocities, not only against each other, but against innocent civilians in their paths. Stories had been whispered by those who passed on the road. Hitler was exterminating millions of Jews and had an expanding list of undesirables who were being killed or imprisoned. Stalin was destroying the people of Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltics. The brutality was shocking. Disgraceful acts of inhumanity. No one wanted to fall into the hands of the enemy, but it was growing harder to distinguish who the enemy was. An old German man had pulled me aside a few days earlier. "Do you have any poison? People are asking for it," he said. "I will not administer poison," I replied. "I understand, but you're a pretty girl. If Russia's army overtakes us, you'll want some for yourself." I wasn't sure how much was exaggeration, how much was true, but I had seen things. An old woman sobbing that they had burned her cottage. Terror was out there and had chased us, so we ran west towards parts of Germany not yet occupied. And now we all sat in an abandoned barn, trying to create a fire for warmth. I removed my gloves and kneaded my chapped hands. For 4 years, I had worked with a surgeon at the hospital in Insterburg. As the war raged and the staff dwindled, I moved from stocking supplies to assisting him in surgery. "You have steady hands, Joanna, and a strong stomach. You'll do well in medicine," he had told me. Medicine. That had been my dream. I was studious, dedicated, perhaps overly so. My last boyfriend said I preferred my studies to him. Before I could prove it wasn't true, he had found another girl. I tried to massage warmth into my stiff fingers. My hands didn't concern me, but the supplies did. There wasn't much left. I had hoped the dead woman on the side of the road might have something: thread, tea, even a clean handkerchief. But nothing was clean. Everything was filthy. Especially my conscience. We all looked up when they entered the barn, a young man carrying a pistol, followed by a short blonde girl in braids and a pink hat. They were both haggard. The blonde girl's face was red with exertion. The young man's face was also flushed. He had a fever. Florian. Others had beaten us there. A teetering collection of weathered horse carts was tucked beyond the brush, a sober portrait of a trek towards freedom. I would have preferred an abandoned site, but I knew I couldn't continue. The Polish girl pulled at my sleeve. She stopped in the snow, staring at the possessions outside the barn, evaluating the contents and whom they might belong to. There was no evidence of military. "I think okay," she said. We walked inside. A group of 15 or 20 people sat huddled around a small fire. Their faces turned as I slipped in and stood near the door. Mothers, children, and elderly, all exhausted and broken. The Polish girl went straight to a vacant corner and sat down, wrapping her arms tightly around her chest. A young woman walked over to me. "Are you injured?" I have medical training. Her German was fluent, but not native. I didn't answer. I didn't need to speak to anyone. "Do you have any food to share?" she asked. What I had was no one's business. "Does she have any food?" she asked, pointing to the Polish girl rocking in the corner. Her eyes looked a bit wild. I spoke without looking at her. "She was in the forest. A Russian cornered her. She followed me here. She has a couple of potatoes. Now leave me alone," I said. The young woman winced at the mention of the Russian. She left my side and headed quickly toward the girl. I found a solitary spot away from the group and sat down. I lodged my pack against the barn wall and carefully reclined on it. It would be warmer if I sat near the fire with the others, but I couldn't risk it. No conversations. I ate a small piece of the sausage from the dead Russian and watched the young German as she tried to speak with the girl from the forest. Others called out to her for help. She must have been a nurse. She looked a few years older than me, pretty, naturally pretty, the type that's still attractive, even more so when she's filthy. Even the barn was filthy. The stench of exertion, failed bladders, and most of all, fear, stunk worse than any livestock. The nurse girl would have turned my head back in Nordensburg. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to look at the pretty girl. I needed to be able to kill her, kill all of them if I had to. My body begged for sleep, but my mind warned me not to trust these people. I felt a nudge at my feet and opened my eyes. "You didn't mention she was Polish," said the nurse. "And the Russian?" she asked. "He's taken care of," I told her. "I need to sleep." She napped down beside me. I could barely hear her. "What you need to do is show me the wound you're trying to hide." Amelia. I thought of the carts outside the barn. They towered with the belongings of refugees. Trunks, suitcases and furniture. There was even a sewing machine like Mamma's. "Why aren't you making any dresses?" I remembered asking Mamma from my sunny perch in our kitchen. Mamma turned to me from her sewing machine. "Can you keep a secret?" I nodded eagerly and moved towards her. She put her hands on her wide belly and smiled. "I think it's a boy. I just know it's a boy." She hugged me close, her warm lips against my forehead. "And you know what? You're going to be the best big sister, Amelia." And now I sat in a frozen barn, alone, so far from home. These people had time to pack. I wasn't able to pack. I had left my entire life chewed to pieces. Who was using Mamma's sewing machine now? The knight hadn't wanted to come inside. What was his name? Who was he running from? I'd examined the carts and belongings, evaluating the items and their potential owners to determine if I was safe to enter. But we had no choice. Sleeping outside meant certain death. I sat in a corner and stuffed straw into my coat for warmth. Once I stopped moving, the pain subsided. I buried my face in my hands. A hand touched my shoulder. "Are you all right?" I looked up to see a young woman above me. She spoke in German, but with an accent. Her brown hair was pulled behind her ears. Her face was kind. "Are you injured?" she asked. I tried to control it. I fought it, and then a single tear rolled down my cheek. She moved in close. "Where does it hurt?" she whispered. "I have medical training." I pulled my coat tight around me and shook my head. "No, danke." The girl cocked her head slightly. My accent had given me away. "Deutsch?" she whispered. I said nothing. The others stared at me. If I gave them my food, perhaps they'd leave me alone. I pulled a potato from my coat pocket and handed it to her. A potato for silence.